Hello, class. So we're starting a new read aloud, and I'm hoping to finish this before the end of the trimester, so you can take a quiz on it if you'd like. And so I read this book over the summer, and I really enjoyed it when I was reading through the Battle of the Book List. It's one of the battle books this year. So if you're interested in reading some of the Battle of the Books, I'm reading a few of the books, and we'll see if there's a battle this year. This one is a little bit silly. I like my silly books. We'll see what happens with our main character. Even from the cover, you can tell it's a bit of a silly book with the kid with the broccoli around his neck. It's called Be a Perfect Person in Just 3 Days. And remember, you can look away from the screen while I'm reading, and then I'll let you know if there's any pictures or anything that I'm showing to you. Chapter 1. Some people want to be astronauts, or ballet dancers, or plumbers. Milo Crinkly wanted to be perfect. It all began in the library. Milo was minding his own business, looking for a good, scary monster story, when a book tumbled down from the top shelf and hit him on the head. Here's a picture of the book falling down from the shelf and hitting Milo on the head. And remember, if you want to see the picture for a little bit longer, you're welcome to pause the video while I show you the picture. First, he felt his aching skull to make sure it was still in one piece. Then he picked up the book. The front cover screamed, "Be a perfect person in just 3 days." It didn't look like any monster story Milo had ever read. That's funny, the book had the exact same title as this one. The author's picture was on the back. Our author's picture is not on the back. Dr. K. Pinkerton Silverfish did not look anything like Milo's idea of a doctor. He wore baggy zebra-striped pants that looked as though they might fall down any second, a shirt with palm trees on it, and 2 buttons missing, 1 mitten, a clown nose, a bow tie with only half a bow, and a dented hat with a feather sticking up on each side. It's a crazy picture. Can you imagine that in your head? The zebra pants and the hat with the feathers. That is quite the mental image. Dr. Silverfish was biting down on a hot dog, and mustard was dribbling down his chin. If you had to pick someone to teach you how to be perfect, Dr. Silverfish would not be high on your list. Yet, somehow, maybe getting hit on the head had scrambled his brains a little. Milo felt almost as though the book had jumped off the shelf. That's some good personification right there. Books can't jump. Grabbed him and hollered, "Read me." More good personification. Books can't grab people. They can't yell at people. Besides, it was thin. It probably wouldn't take much time to finish. Milo opened it to the first page, leaned against the wall, and began reading. Chapter 1. I know what you're thinking. You know what you're thinking? You're thinking, how can a funny-looking guy like this Dr. K. Pinkerton Silverfish teach me how to become perfect, right? Milo nodded. Well, maybe I'm not as stupid as I look. After all, I guessed what you were thinking, didn't I? You have just learned the first lesson in perfection. Things are not always what they seem. You may turn the page. Milo did. Chapter 2. Who says I can make you perfect? Who says I can make you perfect? I do. I, Dr. K. Pinkerton Silverfish, am an expert on perfection. If you don't believe it, just ask me. That seems kind of fishy logic there. I say I'm an expert. If you don't believe me, ask me if I'm an expert, and I'll tell you that I am. Turn the page again. Isn't this easy? Milo had never read an author quite like Dr. Silverfish. He turned the page. Chapter 3. You're getting better all the time. Very good. You turn the page. You can be trusted to follow orders. This is essential if you wish to become perfect. Now, I'm going to tell you what you have to do if perfect is what you want to be. It will take you exactly 3 days. Each evening, you will read exactly 1 chapter of this book. You will follow my instructions precisely, and at the end of the 3rd day, you will be perfect, and I will congratulate you. But let me tell you something you better not try. Under no circumstances should you attempt to become perfect in less than 3 days. Whatever you do, don't read more than 1 chapter each day. Many people are tempted to sneak a look at the very last page before the 3rd day is over. All I can say is, don't do it. Suddenly, Milo had a terrible urge to flip to the last page of the book and see what it had to say. It might have saved him a lot of unnecessary reading. Dr. Silverfish glowered at him from the back cover, but Milo didn't care. He opened the back of the book, flipped past a couple of blank sheets, and found the last page with writing on it. Boy, are you dumb, the book says. Didn't I tell you not to look at the last page of this book? Do you want to become perfect, or don't you? All right, I'll give you 1 more chance. If you're finished with this page, shut the book. Some evening, when you're ready to get serious about being perfect, open it to page 10. There, you'll find instructions about what to do on day 1 of your program of perfection. Now shut the book and don't say I didn't warn you. So it sounds like this doctor kind of thought somebody would peek at the last page and made a plan. Dr. Silverfish was definitely smarter than he looked. Well, he didn't look very smart, so that's not saying a whole lot. Milo shut the book. He decided to take it home. Being perfect sounded pretty good to him. He was always getting into dumb accidents, knocking over his mother's expensive bud vase, or sitting on his sister's brand new record album, or letting the bottom fall out of a bag of groceries, mostly eggs, on the way home from the store. Here's a picture of the groceries falling out onto Milo's feet. The eggs breaking everywhere. Or getting hit on the head by books in the library. That just happened. Things like that obviously didn't happen to perfect people. And he could just imagine what a welcome change it would be to hear people say, Milo, you're perfect. His big sister, Alyssa, wouldn't be able to tell him, you sure are stupid, Milo, or don't be a pest, Milo, the way she did now. His parents would never have anything to bawl him out about. And perfection would probably come in handy in ways he hadn't thought of yet. Perfect was definitely a good thing to be, and Dr. Silverfish seemed to know a lot about it. Milo checked out the book. Halfway home, he remembered he'd forgotten about those monster stories he'd been looking for, but he didn't go back for them. After all, there was no telling what Dr. Silverfish might ask him to do. Becoming perfect might take up most of his time for the next 3 days. Looks like we can start chapter 2, but we probably won't finish it today. Chapter 2. Milo had 2 cream-stuffed Twinkies and a glass of milk and went to his room to get his homework out of the way. It took him longer than usual because his mind kept drifting to Dr. Silverfish's book. Milo kept imagining what it would be like to be a perfect person. He'd be able to do anything he wanted to do and do it right the first time. He would be able to throw out all of his erasers because he wouldn't make mistakes anymore. He could correct his teachers in front of the class and never be wrong. He'd get perfect scores on all of his tests. Best of all, nobody would ever have anything to scold him about. It sounded, well, perfect. He decided he'd read Dr. Silverfish's instructions right after dinner. Of course, he was far from perfect yet. At dinner, his father told him not to slurp his soup. His mother told him to quit eating so fast. And his sister told him to put his feet on his own side of the table. So it sounds like everybody has some suggestions for how Milo could do a little bit better. And here is a picture of him daydreaming. He's correcting his teacher in this one. He's getting 100% on his scores in the top one. I think he's wearing a halo in this one, and a little angel on a pedestal. He definitely has a big idea of what being perfect means. Milo couldn't stand it. "I bet you'd love me if I turned perfect," he said. His mother chuckled. "Not much chance of that, is there?" "I'll settle for okay," said his father. "Nobody's perfect." "Especially Milo," laughed Alyssa. "I'll show them," Milo thought. "Just 3 more days." And he gave his sister a kick under the table. There was no sense in being perfect until he had to. After dinner, Milo went upstairs and sat down at his desk and picked up his copy of Be a Perfect Person. Even with the clown nose, Milo decided Dr. K. Pinkerton Silverfish looked extremely intelligent. It's funny how his decision changes the way he sees the character on the back, the author. Milo began wondering what the K stood for. Carefully, so he couldn't possibly stumble on anything he wasn't supposed to read yet, he opened the book to the inside back cover and found Dr. Silverfish's biography on the jacket flap. Is Dr. K. Pinkerton Silverfish the world's leading authority in perfection? You bet your booties, Grandma. He is also Thompson Seedless Professor of Enology at the Ripple campus of Skid Row College. Skidow. He holds degrees from Fahrenheit University and Centigrade Institute. But when his arms get tired, he puts them down. As a hobby, Dr. Silverfish raises Venus flytraps. Those are the plants that close up and eat the bugs. He also owns the world's second largest collection of unusual toothpicks. Milo closed the book. His questions remained unanswered. But he felt ready to begin. He took a very serious breath and opened the book to where he had left off at the library. So we'll leave it there before we hear about what happens in the first page of Being Perfect.